So the latest in this YSL RICO trial, Judge Glanville could find himself kicked off of this case. And so I really had to give my thoughts on this. My name is Jamahl Kersey. I am the principal attorney at Kersey Law, and we're a boutique criminal defense firm in San Diego, California. And this case is wild for a whole host of reasons, but I've never seen a judge get removed from a case in the middle of a trial. And so this would be something unprecedented for me to see. And really backing up a little bit, trial is extremely stressful. It is just such a stressful process. And if you've never taken a case to trial as an attorney, then you have no idea what really goes into it. When you're seeing these lawyers making these arguments, cross-examining witnesses, delivering closing statements, there's just so much time that has gone into the preparation. It takes so much work, and trials really are a marathon. And this one in particular, this thing has been going on for well over a year. I think we're at the 1.5 year mark. And you know, the longest trial I've been in personally was 1.5 months, and even that was daunting and long. So I can only imagine what it has been like for these lawyers to be, 18 months into a trial. And the reason why I mention that is trial is hard enough when all the conditions are fair, let alone when you have a situation where you believe that the judge is showing bias and is engaging in tactics or actions that are improper and cut against your position. And so since there is all this controversy surrounding Judge Glanville, I think it's important to talk about the judge's role in a trial. And the judge's role in a trial is to basically ensure fairness, right? The judge is like a referee calling fouls and illegal screens, to use a basketball analogy. The judge decides what evidence should come in and what evidence should not be presented to the jury. The judge makes sure that the lawyers ask proper questions and make sure that the information that's presented to the jury is relevant to the case. And throughout the trial, the judge is going to make numerous rulings. And, chances are both sides are going to have issues at some point with a ruling that a judge makes, right? You're not just going to be 100% happy, whether it's the prosecution or the defense, with all the rulings that the judge makes. And so I agree, and I think most lawyers would agree that, you're going to agree with most of the rulings or be able to understand why the judge is ruling how they do. But there are times where you wholeheartedly disagree with what a judge says and how they rule in their case. And, I just recently had a life top trial. So client was facing life in prison, and we had our pretrial motions, right? There was a very serious piece of evidence that we wanted to keep out, and the DA wanted it to come in, and we battled hard. Fortunately, the judge sided with us and kept that information out. And I'm sure the DA disagreed with that ruling, right? But these are things that ultimately happen. And so I heard Attorney Weinstein basically make the comment that the motion to have Judge Glanville removed has nothing to do with his rulings on the evidentiary issues, even though there were a lot of rulings that he made that Attorney Weinstein didn't agree with, but it's solely based on the judge's conduct with respect to this secret meeting. And I'm sure you've heard plenty of times all over the internet about this secret meeting, but ultimately this was a secret meeting between the judges, the DAs investigators, deputy sheriffs, and they had this meeting with Kenneth Copeland, aka Lil Woody, and his stand-in attorney, Kayla Bumpus, right? And again, the controversy is that none of the defense attorneys were present. None of the defense attorneys were notified of this meeting. Lil Woody is supposed to be the star witness for the prosecution, right? But he planned on pleading the fifth. He did not at all want to testify in this case. And his testimony essentially incriminating Thug and his homies would have been obviously very valuable to the district attorney. And anytime the DA wants to do what they can to put someone on the stand and snitch, right? Who better to call as a witness than the guy who's right alongside you, right, when you're doing the dirt. So the DA, even though they're saying, hey, okay, you want to plead the fifth, we're offering you immunity, And so if you have immunity, then they can't prosecute you, even though you're admitting that you committed all kinds of crimes. And it sounds like a murder was on the table as well. And so despite the immunity grant, Lil Woody still didn't want to testify. So this is where Judge Glanville and the DA inform him essentially that he could be held in jail if he refused to testify. And so the defense's position is that, listen, first of all, we should have known about this meeting, right? And you saw Brian Steele in the back and forth with Judge Glanville. Like, why didn't I know about this? We should have been there. Why didn't you tell us? And they were also arguing that the DA and the judge basically intimidated Lil Woody and coerced him into testifying, again, something that he didn't want to do. And so the question might be, like, why should you care about this, right? And, you know, Martin Luther King, to quote him, said, "Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere." I personally have a problem with this with respect to these allegations, and I think everybody should be concerned about what's going on here because, listen, the judge is obviously not a member of the defense team, but he's not supposed to be a member of the prosecution team either. And the reality is there are a lot of judges who were former DAs, right? But it's not supposed to be where the judge is merely a DA with a robe, right? They are not supposed to help either side gain any sort of advantage over the other. And, you know, to take it back to basketball, think about it. We just had the NBA Finals, right? You had the Mavs, you had the Celtics. Obviously, the Celtics won the championship. So what if Game 5, halftime, head referee heads into the locker room with the Mavs, starts strategizing with Kyrie and the Mavs, and it's like, hey, we'll show you some love on the foul calls. If it was leaked that this happened, people would lose their mind. I mean, have you ever seen when a ref blows a foul call and it ends up costing a team the game? This would be a problem because it is insanely inappropriate. It's not fair. It's against the rules. But we're talking about a basketball game. In this case, we're talking about people's constitutional rights. We're talking about people's freedom. You cannot have a judge giving the DA a tactical advantage. Beyond that, you don't even want there to be a hint of this going on. So then when the lawyers actually call this thing out and say, Judge, you know, you are biased. This is unfair. You should recuse yourself. You shouldn't be presiding over this trial anymore. Rather than to pass it off to another judge to make the decision as to whether he should be recused, he's like, you know what? I'm gonna look at the motion myself. I'm gonna police myself. And you know what? Your motion is denied. More unfairness, which is what caused this to ultimately be in a situation where now it's going in front of another judge, which is what should have happened in the first place. But now there's other issues because apparently Judge Krause, who's looking at this case, is under Judge Glanville. So Judge Glanville is the chief judge. Basically, this is a supervisory capacity. I don't know how much he directly supervises over Judge Krause, but you can see how that might be a little awkward where you have the chief judge of Fulton County and you are trying to say whether he should recuse himself. That creates a bit of a tense and awkward situation. On top of that, I saw somewhere that apparently Judge Glanville also contributed to her election campaign. Now, I would not think, especially the whole spotlight that's on this situation, that Judge Krause would, you know, compromise her integrity and, you know, issue a ruling that would not be in line with the law. But, you know, with where we're at this point, why even risk it? Why even risk any hint of impropriety? It should be sent off to another county, to another circuit for an independent judge to take a look at this situation. And let me get something straight. I do not like all the insults and name calling towards Judge Glanville. Listen, you can disagree with his rulings. You can disagree with how he runs his courtroom, but the insults are wrong and I think they need to stop. But that's a separate issue for another day. What I want to bring your attention back to is why you should care about this. Because what if it was your case? Or what if it were your son's case? I mean, it could be any kind of case, right? It doesn't have to be a RICO. Your son could be accused of a DUI or a domestic violence case. If he took his case to trial, wouldn't you want a fair and impartial jury? Wouldn't you want the DA to play fair? And you would absolutely want the judge to be that impartial umpire and not siding with the DA. Rules exist for a reason, and it doesn't matter whether he did it or not. He still has a right to a fair trial. And don't get me wrong, Young Thug and his boys are being prosecuted for some real life gangster stuff. I mean, we've got murder, robbery, guns, drugs, but Listen, if the DA is going to get their conviction, they have to do it the right way. No cutting corners, no bending the rules. If your case was weak, if it's based on shaky evidence, if you don't have the witnesses, then you just should not have brought this case. I take this thing seriously. I dedicated my life and my career to being a trial lawyer, specifically in criminal defense. And so when I see things like this, it just, man, I just know how hard it is when the rules are actually being followed, let alone when you have stuff like this going on. But that's going to be it for now. If you got something out of this little rant, show me some love, hit the like button, make sure you subscribe to the channel. Make sure you turn on those notifications so you never miss a new video when it drops. As always, I want to thank you so much for watching, and until next time, peace.